talk about it. Pain in your heart, well, it's taking your breath away. You left it in lipstick on a mirror, no use talking about it. A love like this just don't come around every day. Somebody just stop calling you angel. Somebody just let look it up and go downtown. Somebody just stop calling you angel. Angel inside in the store, now still running down. Big college cookie in high school. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perfectly Good Podcast, your John Hiatt podcast, where we discuss every Hiatt song from A to Z. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me as always is Sylvan, and we are trying to not skin our knees in kickball.
Which was always not easy for me.
No,
yes.
I was not. I to this day, I am a 63-year-old man, and I've never been able to, when they're doing the jump ring rope, I could never, I was always the guy that I ended up just doing the rope because I could not jump at all.
I mean, the two people who are sitting around talking about music on a podcast weren't the jocks of their school. Shocking.
Good point. Yes. So we are talking Angel tonight.
Yes.
Not Angel Eyes.
Nope.
Angel.
Yes.
So,
and Angel Eyes will be coming shortly. Yes.
Yes. And angel is a phrase John uses often in his writing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. As he has said, he is a good Catholic boy from Indiana. So that angel imagery does come back quite often. And we can get into a whole bunch of feminism, of idealizing women. And, this is one of many songs where I think you could almost imagine the same female character running through John's songs from the 70s all the way up to the 2020s, doing different things, but always with a little bit of a fragile heart, shall we say. But before we get into all that stuff, let's do just the facts, shall we, Jesse?
Let's do, yes.
Okay. This was released on Perfectly Good Guitar, which came out September 7th, 1993. I just forgot which track number it is. Let's see. I think it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. So kind of right in the middle. That album was produced by Matt Wallace. And at the time, there was a lot of press talked about how John is having his midlife crisis. This was the album that was supposed to be all about the youthful energy, because he was working with a producer that had produced young bands. And it was right after Little Village, which was, a bunch of older people. Not really. And as we have learned, none of that is true, just like any good public relations, it's only in service to this story that most of the musicians were only like 5 years younger than John. What is interesting is I did not realize before I started doing the research for this is that the touring band that was out during this time was not on the album. I had thought that the backup musicians for this song were Davey Farrah on bass and Michael Urbano on drums. Not the case. John Pierce is the bass player and Brian McLeod is the drummer. So my apologies, gentlemen, for not knowing about your contribution to the John Hiatt discography. This is the last of the A&M albums that was produced in studio. He did release Hiatt Comes Alive at Budokan to get himself out of that contract that began with Bring the Family. So it's interesting that our last episode, Jesse, was the start of this journey with the A&M company, which many can rightfully say were kind of the most fruitful of John's career, but there were certainly better things ahead. I also wanted to mention that there was this funny little thing called a CD single that came out, I believe 1994, the year after the album was released, and it was the Angel CD single. And there was a total of 4 songs on that. Of course, Angel, a very early version of Little Good Night, which we will hear in Leftover Feelings in 2021, and a pretty different version of I'll Never Get Over You, which we will hear on The Tiki Bar is Open in 2001. So if you are lucky enough to be able to track that down, it's a little kind of snippet of history and an interesting look at how John keeps these songs kind of spinning around until he's ready to let them out for a wider audience. So those are some facts about Angel. Do you want to share your thoughts or get into some
Yes.
lyric analysis?
So I remember really loving Perfectly Good Guitar, the CD. The song itself that we will get to was always a favorite of, as I talked about last time, Chris Jackson watching Jamie Lee Curtis take off part of her clothes. He loved Perfectly Good Guitar, the actual single, and we'll talk more about that when we get to that. But that was one of the songs that Play It Again, Dad, Play It Again, Dad.
Aw.
This is I loved the energy of these songs, the album.
Mhm.
When we saw him live, I was not as much fan of the band performing live. It was just a
Interesting.
little too crazy for me, but that's also the very bad experience where we went to a club that had no seating. That was the first time as an old man, and I was not as old as I am now, but we went and we made the joke. We didn't ask, did a chair come with this ticket? Like we
Yeah.
just, but I love this song. I love the sense of joy, the sense of playfulness. It's a catchy tune, man. It just you bob your head with it, and
Wow.
some fun lyrics. How about you? This song?
I'm blown away that that's how you described it, Jesse, because you're absolutely right musically, but the
Yeah,
lyrics are not particularly fun or
yeah.
lighthearted. And in fact, as I said, he has many songs where he talks about the female experience. And myself hearing this for the first time as a 15-year-old girl, it went right to my heart. And it was about no one is going to understand me. You know, you wrote it in lipstick on a mirror, and you know, you just gotta let love get up and go downtown, and all of these like images. I feel it's about being very misunderstood or trying to be put into a box. Somebody just stopped calling you Angel. And, it could be about, no longer being the sweet, submissive self, and having the repercussions fall for that. But you're absolutely right that like it's a dancey tune. You want to like tap your feet, and I suppose you could be celebrating the somebody just stopped calling you Angel, but I have never heard it that way. So you just gave me something to reapproach this song.
So yeah, same thing. I'm gonna have to listen to it because I almost think this, right, that it's you're kind of put in a box as Angel, as fragile, as this something that should be worshipped, and this is instead we're calling you where it's a real relationship with all the flaws and all the pain and all the reality of I don't know if you've ever watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, but for a longer time, right, the main character would get up in the morning and put on makeup so that when her
Yes.
husband would wake up, he would not see her.
Right.
And
Lay back down on the pillow all
yeah,
perfectly coiffed and
yes.
yes, yeah.
And so in my mind, this is part of that, okay, we are going to see you with your mascara running down,
Mm-hmm,
but that's
mm-hmm,
okay because that image of you, I don't need to call you Angel. I need someone real. I don't
mm-hmm,
need someone that is a persona. So
mm-hmm.
I now want to go back and listen to this from your perspective, uh, because once again, we both could be right and we both could be wrong.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
for that matter, I was always kind of thinking of this as it's like, it's a torch song, it's a breakup song written for a younger, inexperienced woman from an older man, which is interesting to say the least. And, you could peel back those layers quite a bit, but you could also just kind of think of it as, who this narrator is and what he's seeing in this girl that he's talking to. Is he trying to speak for her, give her words, or is he trying to show her a different side that might not be in her own head? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because let's go through some lyrics, right? It's a
Mhm.
hurting thing. You don't want to talk about it. Pain in your heart. Well, it's taking your breath away. You left it in lipstick on the mirror. No use talking about it. Love like this just don't come along every day. Somebody just stop calling you Angel. All right. So it does seem like someone has broke up with her, right? Is this, it could be her choice, it could be not her choice. What are you thinking after this first the first stanza?
The first stanza I read as a pretty classic breakup scenario.
Yeah.
But in true John fashion, he's not going to let it just lay in the obvious, because if we jump ahead to the next verse,
Sure.
they called you Tookie in high school. You didn't mind it too much. Kind of nice to have a nickname, kind of like they thought about it. You wish that it stuck with you, didn't have to trade it in on some crazy lover's pet name, wind up hurting so much. So it's not something good has gone away. It's something was not functioning. And you lost your ability to have your own identity, to be known by people as something that is your own, to have a nickname. You, I kind of find that concept interesting too. It's such a fun idea to play with, is like, I have an unusual first name, Sylvan, so no one ever called me anything but Sylvan. I was never I don't know, is Jesse short for anything, or is it just Jesse?
No, it's Jesse, and a few people called me JW because
Okay.
in when I was a freshman in high school, back in the days where you had your PE clothes, there was a spot for you to write your name. And my mom wrote, because she didn't have room for Jesse Jackson, she put J.W. Jackson. And so people called me JW. Though in the spirit of we usually share way too much about ourselves, um, my father called me Hot Shot growing up. That was the nickname he gave for me. When I was a Rick with a D as a teenager, I hate the name Hot Shot. Never call me that again. And he stopped.
Yeah.
And when I gained my senses and said, Dad, I was just a jerk. You should call me Hot Shot again.
Yeah.
Never did.
But the moment the spell was broken. Yeah.
Yes. And you now go, right? Like, God, what a jerk you were, young
Yeah.
Jesse. I'm gonna give you grace because you're a teenager and you do that, right? But that,
And they're
you
all
know,
jerks. Yeah.
yes, and it, and I think of this almost where a scene in a romantic comedy where Um, it's Rebecca. I
Mhm.
don't want to be called Becca, or this
Mhm.
this lashing out at this, that isn't, or you haven't earned the right to call me Tukey
Right.
or whatever it
Right.
is. So yeah, I thought that was a really powerful stanza for that, like a crazy lover's pet name wind up hurting so much that they were calling you something, and now then hearing it again brings back all the bad memories of what that meant.
Right. And when a lover has a pet name, it's kind of a sense of ownership.
Yes.
Whereas, your friend's nickname for yourself is like a status symbol almost, or
Right.
like, they
Yeah.
thought about it,
Yeah.
they didn't just like, oh, it's that girl again. Oh, it's ain't, Tookie. Hey,
Yeah.
we're all having fun.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
if you'll notice, um, Chris Jackson goes by CJ a lot, but for some reason, when he was a young kid, we started saying, well, Chris Jackson. and so we still do that. We when usually almost any time I'm talking about him, I will say Chris Jackson.
Yeah.
And he calls his mom LJ.
Oh,
He calls me dad or pop, but he calls his mom, my wife, LJ, and she's not a stepmom, she's his mom. And we often joke that when he has kids, they're going to say, why do we call grandma LJ?
yeah, yeah.
But that's the nickname he has for her, and he calls her LJ.
And
So
she
yeah.
probably is quite,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
that's that, if he
because
called her mom, she'd like, what's going on?
yeah, and there's literally billions of moms, and there's only one mom
LJ.
who's LJ.
That's
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because there's also a lot more lyrics to the song
Okay,
here.
good.
He peeled the skin off of the world and you stopped breathing. You drew a breath, he sighed. The air was freezing. Two blood red hearts pumping hard out in the open. You skinned your knee at kickball 20 years ago against all hoping. There's a lot going on in that stanza. Um, so many different images playing, and we're not quite sure what it is that's going on. But the idea that like he opened up a way of thinking for her, I think, is he peeled the skin off of the world and you stop breathing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, but he unwrapped the world, or he
right,
drew the curtain back on a world
there's a
and gave you a
violence to it.
vision. There is a violence to it. There is
Mm-hmm.
this, yes, violence is the perfect word, and you stop breathing.
Yes.
Now, is that breathing out
Intentional.
of fear?
Yeah.
Is that breathing because, the romantic, you take my breath away?
Mm-hmm.
They opened up the world to me, and it literally took my breath away with the
Mm-hmm.
options and the different things I could do.
Mm.
And you drew a breath, he sighed, and the air was freezing.
Yeah.
Now, Linda and Chris will tell you there's nothing worse than the Jesse sigh. And they will go, oh, that's not good. That's not good. Jesse sigh. Um, you drew a breath, he sighed, and all of a sudden the air's freezing. Now, is that because there's a chill in the air? Because
Okay.
are you now frozen in fear?
Mhm.
We do talk about angel wings out in the snow, so there is that feeling of winter,
Mhm.
but it is he peeled the skin off the world and you stopped breathing. You drew a breath, he sighed, the air was freezing. Two blood red hearts pumping hard out in the open. You skinned your knee at kickball 20 years ago against all hoping.
Yeah. How random is that?
It is the skin of your knee is just what these mean. And what do you mean 20-year girls all hoping? Were you a tomboy? Were you, and then you tried to, did he make you into something you're else? I don't
Well,
know.
I am gonna post a wild theory that
Okay.
I will probably never be able to prove or disprove, but
We are all about wild theories here.
there is a lyric in the song My Baby about fringe jacket velcroed to a bucks or fringe velcro to a buckskin jacket, which when you hear it, it's like, what the heck is that coming from? And I have a live recording of an earlier reiteration of that song where he talks about a woman, and I think it's Nancy Hyatt, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Her parents didn't like the way the fringe looked on this jacket. They thought it was too sexual or whatever. They forbid her to wear this jacket. So she modified it by putting Velcro on the fringe and would hide the Velcro in her purse. And when she'd leave the house, there wouldn't be any fringe on her jacket. Then she'd say bye. And as soon as parents were out of sight, she'd Velcro it back on and have the cool look that she was looking for. So there could be something like that, that
Yeah.
there's some kickball story in any one of his sister, his mother, his wife. And now I really, really want to know, because I
Yeah.
hadn't really paid that much attention to it. Honestly, it's one of those that could kind of zip
Yeah.
by as like, well, I
Because
missed that metaphor.
what were they hoping 20 years ago against all hoping?
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
And the fact that he mentions 20 years ago is kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
Because it speaks against the idea that this is a fairly young woman who's having her heart broken for the first time.
Hmm.
But if you're playing kickball 20 years ago, you're probably at least in your late 20s,
Right.
30s, maybe. Yeah.
And is this a journey song? Has
Mm-hmm.
Angel been through different relationships? And
Mm-hmm.
these are the different themes and the different times that she's gone.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get to the food metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all put that hammer down, drove through love's angel food cake, tasting every spongy layer and licking frosting off the moon, wild-eyed with excitement, but childishly disappointed. Maybe even tasted better when mama let you lick the spoon. So with childly disappointed, almost to me doesn't fit, because the rest of it is right. Like you're tasting love, you're getting to taste the frosting.
Oh, see, that to me is the best part, and that's what makes
Yeah.
all that work.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
yeah. So remember when you were a kid, and we're recording this in early December, and Christmas is coming. And when you're a
Right.
kid, you're thinking about Christmas, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's gonna be
Yes.
the best day ever. And then Christmas comes, and it's over in about 15 minutes, and you're like, wait a second, what?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
that childish disappointment. But at the same time, you're still taking it in. You're wild-eyed with excitement, but childishly disappointed. And I think that is a great metaphor for falling in love with the first time, that it's sweet and it's amazing, but it's like, but I've been, watching Disney cartoons about princesses falling in love and, romantic comedies or whatever. And it was supposed to be amazing times 1,000, and this is only amazing times, maybe 1.5. What's up with that? And I think the food metaphor works because I love food, and I, all that sweetness and the licking frosting off the moon is basically kind of, I think, also peeling away the moon imagery as this romantic thing,
Yeah.
that bringing it back down into something base that you would actually, use as a spoon.
Well, and so my Linda went to Louisiana to spend a week helping to take care of my mom. My sister went on vacation, so my lovely bride went down to Louisiana and was helping out. And I was trying to think of something I could do for her. And so I, I didn't go crazy, but I went and bought a yellow cake mix, and I got a can of frosting, and I made the cake that, by the way, partly true to my mom. My mom would always say, if you really want your cake mix to be good, always throw an extra egg in there. If they tell you need 3 eggs, put in 4, and
Interesting.
instead of oil, use a stick of butter, and it will
Whoa.
be, yeah. So I did. I made a quote unquote homemade cake, and gave a homemade icing, and I'm using our mixer to make the cake mix, and you the frost, the batter is dripping off the
Eaters.
beaters, and I'm like, I feel like I should be asking someone, do you want to lick the beaters, right? So
Yeah.
seeing that lick the spoon, and that's exactly, as you're talking about Christmas and the excitement of it, it is, you spend all this time going over, and then it's done. It's over, and it's almost anticlimactic. And then you got to
Absolutely.
take all the decorations down. And as you know, in many ways, one of the saddest things ever is, on December 28th, 29th, that real Christmas tree out on the alley for the garbage men to pick up, and it's just still got a few pieces of tinsel, and it's like, oh, yeah.
Yes.
So I love that. Now that you put it that way, that's exactly, you're wild-eyed with excitement, but is this real love? To quote another thing, right? That the just like your dad did, right? There is all kinds of problems, and you're worried about your job, but you love your wife and kids just like your dad did, right? You have that's a mature love. That's a
Yes, that's
mature
the
love.
corn beef chip on, or corn chip beef on toast, or
Yes. Yeah.
yeah. And like when you're a kid, the fantasy is like, oh, if I got to be the adult, I would eat cake for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I wouldn't ever have a stick of broccoli.
Yeah.
And then when you're older, you realize, like, broccoli ain't that bad. And
Right.
I
Exactly.
feel a
Yeah.
lot better when I've had some broccoli.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I now, like I said, I want to listen to this again, thinking of that. I just think this is a really strong song. I think he is really, this is not as, I don't think there is from my perspective, as strong a message as some of his other songs, like where you specifically, I'm telling a story. I think this is, in a lot of ways, what there's paintings that are actual still art, and then there's paintings where you
A
build
little
your own.
impressionistic.
Yeah, impressionistic. I think this might be a little impressionistic, where you can go a lot, but it's just one I really enjoy.
It's really fun to listen to. And as I said, as a teenage girl, it really kind of stuck with me. It is interesting that, where he's talking about 20 years ago against all hoping. I have been out of college now for 20 years. And I wonder how I would react to this song if I heard it for the first time today in my 40s rather than at 15. But you're absolutely right. It's a strong song. And I love how John talks about his fascination with women navigating the world, and being the youngest boy in a family full of older sisters, and the impact that made. I think it comes up again and again. I would almost put this song right next to Good as She Can Be, which is on, I believe I'm remembering correctly, it's on Walk On as a continuation. But here, it doesn't have to be that person who's looking back and regretting things. It could be, someone who's kind of like claiming their ability to be more than an angel, to be a full human. But, angel wings out in the snow and mascara running down. There's a loss to that. There's a loss to I'm putting away the sugary innocence of all of those metaphors and claiming myself and, letting love walk away, letting love get up and go downtown. So it's a really interesting song.
So I'll throw in another half-baked idea. Is that last verse saying that you were wild out of excitement, childishly disappointed, but maybe it ended up tasting better than Mama let you lick your spoon. Maybe this is a journey of different relationships, and they have reached the one where it's not I'll love you forever, happy ever after, but in its own way, it tastes even better than when Mom let you. And that she has found a good place. The singer and them, have found a good place where they have a realistic adult relationship.
Yeah. I really like that interpretation. And I think I wish there were covers that played with that a little bit more, because I think maybe, it's so fun and it's so rocking. Like you said, it feels so happy. I think maybe if you did kind of play with it, what note you played it in, and maybe did something a little different, you could have a different sound. And I was just kind of thinking that, like, the angel wings out in the snow and mascara running down, to me, that is like this tragic figure of a fallen angel, and crying is what first came to me. But it could be, I have tossed away the angel wings that didn't belong to me. And mascara running down is I'm washing it away. I'm taking away the fake stuff and the, too good to be true sites. And I am gonna stand up for myself. Get up and go downtown, not being abandoned by love, getting up and going downtown away from you. So that's different.
Okay. I love it. All right. So it's your turn to any other thoughts before we give our ratings?
No, but I do miss the CD singles.
Yes, those were fun. I agree. Yes.
Yeah. So it's now time for the scale of 1, a very good song because it was written by John Hiatt, to 5. It's so good that it defines how good a John Hiatt song could be, and where in that ranking does Angel fall for me. I'm gonna say it's a 3.
Okay.
It's great. It's fun. I would totally put it on for someone who hasn't heard John before, but it's not the first song. It's like, oh, you like Faith No More? I have a song that was produced by the same guy who did Faith No More. I'll choose this one. And, you had to work a little harder at it. It's fun to listen to no matter what, but like, I do like a song that you get it on the first listen and you get it more and more as you listen to it.
Yeah.
So 3 for me.
So I'm going to be a little bit higher, a 3.5, I think, just because it is such a impressionistic song. It has a lot of different meanings, and it is just a wonderful medley and a beautiful, the instrumentation is fun. I like the kind of contrast of the fun music with possibly more serious lyrics. So a little bit higher than you, 3.5, but still certainly a good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. It's all about where the scale starts and ends. So a 3 is not an average song.
No.
Beyond the worlds of John Hiatt. It's a fantastic song.
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So let us know what you think. perfectlygoodpodcast@gmail.com is our email address. We have a Facebook page, Perfectly Good Podcast. We hang out at John Hyatt Fans, where the people have been very kind to us and supportive of the podcast. Shout out
Thank
to
you
you
all.
guys. We appreciate you. Go to iTunes, rate and review us. We would love some reviews. Continue to tell a friend about this, please. We're trying to grow our little podcast, and we want as many people on the journey with us as possible. Sylvan, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Sylvan Groth on Facebook and Sylvan Green Eyes on Twitter, if Twitter still exists.
Yes, for now, I am at Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. Please reach out, let us know. And another one down the books. Way to
Yes.
go. And I bet you did not think we would have this much to discuss about this song, did you? You did?
Surprised, but you
Okay.
know, it's John we're talking about. So
It's
there's
John.
always
It's
something.
always something. All
There's
right.
always peeling those layers.
Yes, we are. All right. Thank you, listeners, so much for being there with us. Please be safe, be kind, and have a little faith.
Have a little faith, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Baby, we can come on home.